Hey yo, Yinzers. The day is Wednesday, November 11th, and I, of course, want to begin this podcast by first thanking all those who have served or are currently serving in our military, as it is Veterans Day. So thank you so much for our freedom and giving us the ability to do things like this, which are really awesome. So it's allowed us, of course, as a nation to enjoy items that are staples of this great country, things like apple pie, fireworks, and Pittsburgh left turn. And football. Because I feel like each week we start this podcast with saying the Steelers are still undefeated. And fortunately, we get to do that at least one more time. Didn't come without suspense, though, naturally. I think I've lost about 3 years of my life watching Steelers football these past 3 weeks. But they have eked out wins on the road against the Titans, Ravens, and now Cowboys to remain the last undefeated NFL team. Of course, some fans still weren't happy, and my game recap on Monday, if you didn't read it, check out yinzercrazy.com. It focused on just that. The resounding message was really that there is, something to be said about a team that just finds a way to win at the end of the day, right? It was about a quarterback who maybe didn't play his best game, but leads his team on a game-winning drive. A defense that didn't bring their A game, but you know what? They did not allow what's eating Garrett Gilbert's grapes to drive down the field at the end of the game and come up with a game-winning touchdown as Minkah Fitzpatrick and his boys on the back end made a great game-saving stop at the end of that thing. Although the Steelers are undefeated, it certainly hasn't been an ideal week. We learned early on Tuesday that Ben Roethlisberger was placed on the COVID-19 reserve list with the possible designation to return. We saw last week that Matt Stafford had a similar circumstance where the Lions placed him on the COVID-19 reserve list, but he didn't have the virus. He just was in close contact with somebody who did. And so they activated him before Sunday's game because he passed a number of protocols and tests that allowed him to play on Sunday. What he wasn't able to do was practice that week. And I wonder how much Ben was actually going to practice this week anyways, considering he has been battered and bruised in his last couple games and obviously has some sore knees after this Cowboys contest. So we'll monitor that, of course, but it could be Mason Rudolph running the show on Sunday against the Bengals. We're running the show today, and we're excited to bring you a couple more guests in our Where Are They Now Steelers series. Last week we heard from Cortez Allen and Marcus Wheaton. And soon you'll hear from former Steelers tight end Weslye Saunders, who has a lot to say about still wanting to play football and possibly sitting around waiting on a call from the Steelers. You never know this season, right? With COVID and things of that nature. Vance McDonald just went down. Saunders was playing in the AAF for some time. It might be a long shot, but hey, it's a strange year and a strange season. We're also going to talk to former running back Jonathan Dwyer, who certainly had some transgressions in his career, but is a player who came onto the scene for the Steelers and had a really good season from them. It was a hot waiver wire pickup in fantasy, if you remember. So we'll see what they're up to these days. I want to make a big show announcement, too, because later in the week, we have two awesome guests. We have Bryant McFadden, two-time Super Bowl champion for you. He's a current analyst on CBS Sports. You might remember him as number 20 in the defensive backfield playing DB for the Steelers. And we also have Joy Taylor on the show. Joy is the sister of Jason Taylor. Former Miami Dolphins All-Pro. But I'm not going to, mention that even in the interview because she has carved out quite the career for herself. Joy is a co-host on The Herd with Colin Cowherd on FS1. She's actually a Pittsburgh native. And we certainly have had some beef. We've been critical of Cowherd this year for his Steelers takes. So hopefully I'll be able to get to the bottom of that and get Joy's insight on that. But for now, let's get you to Weslye Saunders on the Yinzer Crazy Podcast. And once again, make sure you follow us on all social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're going to be bringing you hot heat and some good Steelers content as we remain the last unbeaten in the NFL. All right, let's get to Weslye. Thanks for tuning in to the Yinzer Crazy Show, sponsored by Performance Auto, 1701 Freeport Road, Arnold, PA, and of course supported by yinzercrazy.com. We're continuing on with our Where Are They Now Steelers series. Last week we brought you Marcus Wheaton and Cortez Allen on the podcast. Today we have Jonathan Dwyer and this dude, former tight end Weslye Saunders, joins us. Weslye, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I certainly appreciate it.
It's an honor. We're excited to catch up with you about some Steeler football. This team is I'm sure you're well aware by now, is in vogue right now at 8-0. But I want to talk about you and your career a little bit first. You were an undrafted free agent in 2011, signee with the Pittsburgh Steelers out of South Carolina, and you had an impactful first season, man. You had a touchdown, a 2-yard pass, in a 13-9 Sunday night win against the Chiefs. How for you? What was the feeling like coming on as an undrafted rookie and still being able to make an impact in your first season?
It was definitely an eye opener and something that was much appreciated on my end. Coming to such an illustrious organization as the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they had such a veteran presence in that locker room. I was able to learn from a lot of the older guys very, very quickly. I went from being a rookie in August to I felt like a veteran almost. By the end of November, learning under Heath Miller and Casey Hampton and Ryan Clark and those guys. So it was probably the best position I could have been in out of all 32 teams. That was probably the spot where I needed to be.
You just mentioned. Yeah. You just mentioned some legends in Steeler lore, of course, and what a privilege to be working under them and with them on the same roster. Is there anybody that sticks out, Wes, that was like kind of almost your mentor?
Oh yeah, definitely. Certainly Heath Miller. Being in that tight end room every day with Heath, him being such a humble guy, but also such a student of the game. He had such a respect for his body, for his craft. That was one of the things that matured me the most. Watching him day in and day out, I'd always relied on my own talent and my God-given gifts to get me where I was. And this guy in the NFL staying out an hour after practice, working on blocking drills, catching from the just little stuff, showing up early. So those were the things that really were imprinted upon myself.
What was it like being on a team with Ben Roethlisberger at the helm at quarterback? Obviously, he's the talk of the nation right now in the National Football League. Comes off major elbow surgery and has his team 8-0 in his 17th season as quarterback. What was he like as a leader and as just a dude who was in charge of throwing you the rock?
Ben is just a natural leader. And of course, I always say, people often assume you're a leader when you're tall. He's 6'7", big dude, so I'm sure he's been getting that from a young guy like myself. So, just being tall and being big, you have to serve responsibility. And of course, being the franchise quarterback, that comes with a whole different responsibility in itself. And he's the kind of guy that's built for that pressure. And of course, you can't talk about Ben without talking about Coach Tomlin and Kevin Colbert and putting together a team, putting together a system in place that is custom built for a guy like Ben, for him to thrive and him to be able to do what he does, and obviously Coach Thomas never had a losing season, and it's a reason for that.
Wes, certainly a lot of our Steeler Nation and our diehard Yinzer fans know about you and kind of know about your story because, obviously Pittsburgh fans are just different. We follow this team and all of our players very, very closely, man, as I'm sure you've learned by now. It was obviously a really strong start for you and then kind of a tumultuous end. You had a little 4-game suspension there at the 2012 season, I should say, start of that campaign for Adderall. And I was reading a story write-up by NFL.com in 2013 talking about how a lot of players didn't know Adderall was even on the banned list and how that kind of became contentious in the league. Is that a similar story to kind of what happened to you?
Oh yeah, that pretty much sums it up. But unfortunately, when certain things happen, you have to take accountability for it, and that's what I had to do. I had to bite the bullet, even though I had tested positive for that substance as a rookie. So I didn't know. I had barely learned my playbook. So I didn't really have time to learn about the banned substances, especially because that was 2011, the year that the NFL lockout had been going on. So there was preseason or rookie camp for them to tell us about this stuff. So, that was an immediate wake-up call for me, especially, being that feeling like I had done anything wrong, and still having to face the ramifications of that, which ultimately led to my exit from Pittsburgh.
Really interesting stuff. We're catching up with former Steelers tight end Weslye Saunders. Wes then went on to play for the Indianapolis Colts for a couple years where, you kind of had an up-and-down career there, I should say, as well. How tough was it kind of to regain your footing battling those suspensions in Indianapolis?
It was pretty tough initially, being that I had never been a guy who was in the news for being in trouble kind of guy. That was never my thing. I've done some knucklehead things when I was a kid, but who hasn't? But as far as the what I was facing from public scrutiny in the NFL, that was something that was very eye-opening to me at 23 years old. So I got suspended in the NCAA for accepting money at 22, at 21, and then in the NFL I got suspended twice in my first 2 years for banned substances that I wasn't privy to. So it really made me. I had to humble myself, of course, because I looked like an idiot in public perception. It was an embarrassment to my family. I have a well-educated family. I didn't come from poverty or anything like that. So, it was very disappointing to have the perception be that I was just this idiot, just running around doing as he pleases with no regard for the rules whatsoever. So I do believe that, it was the timing of everything as well, and, I had to take accountability. But it was definitely a maturation process for sure.
Well, listen, you certainly never gave up on yourself, and you never gave up on football. Dude, I want to know a little bit about the AAF. I know that you were off and on with the Birmingham Iron this past season. I was watching a lot of these games. Once again, you know how fans are. We crave football. I don't care if it's played in my basement. I'm probably I'm gonna watch it. What was that experience like competing in that league, and how was that level of competition? I know you're, like I said, off and on with the Birmingham team.
Yeah, well, AAF was great while it lasted, man. We actually considered ourselves to be the Steelers of the AAF. A lot of guys who had affiliations with that team were there. It was a hard hat, work hard kind of environment in Birmingham, and it just felt right. And it definitely showed me that I had the ability to still play in the National Football League, and that that mojo, that yearning for the field was still there. So. I definitely needed it. We can't obviously end it ingloriously, but a lot of the guys were able to continue their careers and get chances in the NFL after that season. So, I guess it worked out.
Yeah, no question. Wes, you're 31, right?
Yeah.
Hey, are you still looking for jobs? Are you sitting by the phone kind of saying, hey, if there's a couple injuries, XFL is out there? Is that something that's still in your mind, or are you kind of maybe transitioning to a next phase of life type deal?
Well, that's interesting, man. I've been trying really hard to get back on the field, especially ever since, the issues that I ran into in the past actually got me to the path that I'm on now, which is more of a holistic method. I went vegan for a year and lost about 35 pounds. I'm fast, like, the 31-year-old Wes will run laps around the 23-year-old Wes.
That's wild. That's rarely said,
yeah,
probably.
Exactly. Exactly. So I feel like I'm turning back the hand of time as far as, how I'm treating my body and what I'm able to do with my body at this point. So I'm more excited now to get on the field than I was, 10 years ago. So, I'm actually, I am by the phone. I've been working with the NFL and Troy Vincent and Lindy Bandy, the head of security, because there was a bolo out that was misappropriated with my name, and there was some confusion sent out around teams about my whereabouts and my availability and what I was up to. So we're getting that cleared up now, so that NFL front offices don't think that Wes Saunders is accredited. So, thank you to Troy Vincent and Lenny Bandy for reaching out to me so we can get this issue rectified and I can get back on the team. So I would love to be back in Pittsburgh, but that should go without saying.
Certainly some good individuals to have on your side. You mentioned Troy Vincent, former Eagle, head of player personnel. And I think this year, different from many others because of the COVID-19 and just the challenges the NFL and rosters have faced to, field a team on Sundays, there is certainly a chance you can get a call. So it's good to hear that you're still interested in playing. I want to ask you a little bit about, I know you just talked about the Steelers and you'd like another opportunity. On a scale of 1 to 10 right now, and I know you're out of football and played some with other teams, obviously, what's your rooting interest kind of in the Steelers right now?
Oh, man, I've just, I still feel like I'm a part of the team. As crazy as that sounds.
Wow.
Especially, being that my exit was what it was. I had such a rapport with the fans in the city of Pittsburgh. My daughter still lives up there with her mom. I still feel rooted in the city. So, if there's any game that I watch on the weekends, it's Steelers game. And, and Coach Tomlin was the guy who brought me in, and he obviously saw something in me. So, of course, that appreciation will always be there. So, I'm 100% rooting for the Steelers.
So because your daughter's up there, you're still frequenting the Bird when you can, I would imagine, right?
Quite a bit, man.
Cool.
A bit. So, I hit the tunnel. I'm able to see the stadium, and, it brings back all those memories all over again. And, of course, I still envision myself running out of that tunnel onto that field making plays.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome to hear. I randomly asked this question to Marcus Wheaton last week because I was genuinely curious. Do you have a fantasy football team?
No, man. I don't. I leave that to the fans. And I did tell myself that the only time I would create a fantasy football team is when I got back onto the field. So maybe we'll see one soon.
All right, cool. I was hoping to have you crack there. Marcus cracked last weekend. He was like, maybe I have Deontay Johnson, and he said he might put a call into Ben Roethlisberger to see if he can get him a few more targets. He was being tongue-in-cheek, of course, but that was just something that I'm always curious about with former athletes. Hey, man, I mentioned that we have Jonathan Dwyer on this episode of the podcast as well. He was a class ahead of you in 2010. You got any dirt on him for me that I could bring up?
Man, not too much on Dwyer.
Too clean?
Other than the fact that he showed up at training camp about 255 pounds. He was pretty heavy at one point, so it was a running joke about how big and how fat he was. But to his credit, he was able to get off the weight and provide some help in that backfield for us.
Dude, you needed to get him on the vegan diet at that time. You didn't have the vegan diet back at that time. You could have hit Dwyer up with.
Exactly. I was one of the most unhealthy people at the time, man. I had tipped the scales at about 295 pounds. And, that was one of the reasons that led to my weight loss journey.
Well, good for you in your personal life. Obviously having some really cool and bountiful endeavors outside of football. I just had Taco Bell for dinner last night. I'm not even messing with you, so I'm going to keep your contact and hit you up any for these vegan tips, and hopefully that can turn into something prosperous as well outside of football. Hey, listen, man.
Hey, man, it's okay. You can eat whatever you want. The idea is to be able to eat what you want and still know how to get rid of it in a healthy, mindful kind of way. So that's what it's all about.
That's true. It's just a lot more difficult when it's two triple-decker chalupas, but...
that could be a challenge.
Hey, man, it's been a pleasure. I think Steeler fans will be pumped to catch up with you. Just like we were. Hey, listen, we're rooting for you to get a phone call, and maybe we'll see you back in the black and gold. Who knows, right? The way this year has gone, 2020 has certainly been wild. But all the best to you, your daughter in Pittsburgh, and let's do it again sometime, dude.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Like I say, I'll tell you this: Dez Bryant going to the Ravens gave me a lot of motivation. He's older than me, so that's got to something keeping on my mind. Thank you to Steeler Nation for all the love, man. I hope to see y'all soon. I appreciate you having me.
Fingers crossed, Wes. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. The title of our show is Yinzer Crazy, and I think some of you out there might think Weslye is crazy for thinking that he's still got a shot in the league, but I don't. Like I said in the intro, this year has just been very different, right? You're seeing, guys who still want to play football given a chance because of the COVID circumstances. We had a week where the entire Raiders offensive line was put on COVID-19 reserve list. If that would have spread, they would have been looking for guys on the street most likely. Vance McDonald has the virus. You'd never want to see it, but it's very possible that he would pass it on to Eric Ebron and then maybe Zach Gentry, the third tight end on the Steelers roster. And you might be looking to fill two spots at tight end. I don't know. Saunders is a guy who is familiar with the city, the system, and I mentioned has some recent football experience, although he's getting a little long in the tooth at 31. It was still really interesting to hear his perspective on his time with the Steelers, kind of ragging on his boy JD, Jonathan Dwyer, a bit too. So we'll give Dwyer a chance to respond coming right up. I want to remind you that the Yinzer Crazy Show is, of course, supported by YinzerCrazy.com and sponsored by Performance Auto on 1701 Freeport Road in Arnold, PA. We love all you crazy Yinzers out there. I hope you're able to catch our commercial. We have two different ones. One is airing on your television screen right now, featuring Ike Taylor, Jason Kendall, former Pitt guard and current Duquesne assistant coach Ashton Gibbs, talking about their love for Yinzer Crazy. And then we have another fan commercial where we allowed you guys to express your love for Yinzer Crazy and what we're hoping to bring to you guys, which is just overwhelming joy and like we call ourselves, we are your fan cave, literally coming to life. We bring the fans in on these interviews, and I think we give you exclusive access to these athletes that you might not get on other sites. So we appreciate you rocking with us. We have merchandise dropping soon. A t-shirt, maybe that'll read, I know Yinzer Crazy, but so am I. And that's how we feel. So I hope you guys cop that shirt. Proceeds will certainly go to a good place as we're looking to work with some charity sponsor partnerships in regard to that. All right, nothing further needs to be said. Let's get to Jonathan Dwyer, former Georgia Tech running back and Pittsburgh Steelers running back, and catch up with him and see where he's at now. And let's keep the line moving here at the Yinzer Crazy Show. We're excited to welcome on another guest on our Where Are They Now Steelers series. It's a series that has been sweeter than honey for us, so we thought that we could attract the Yellow Jacket. Say what's up to former Georgia Tech and Steelers running back Jonathan Dwyer. John, where are you at now, man?
I'm back home in the area of Georgia. I'm training kids at this facility called Fury Performance here in Weslye, Georgia. I'm running back coach and running game coordinator at Kell High School in Marietta.
Good stuff. Really cool. Really good to have you on. We're happy to talk Steelers. Obviously, this is a team that is in vogue right now as they are undefeated. And you, of course, were a former Steeler, 6th-round pick in 2010 after being the former ACC Player of the Year. John, let's talk about that, your early career in the black and gold. You were kind of finding your footing in 2010 and 2011. You made the team both years and worked behind guys like Rashard Mendenhall and Melody Moore. What can you tell me about being in that running back room, man?
Yeah, it was fun, man. Just to be able to, learn from guys like Rashard and.
Yeah, for sure, no question. And you, you made an impact big time in 2012, the next year. Rashard Mendenhall and Isaac Redmond went down with injuries midway through the season, and you started to get the rock, man. You had 2 consecutive games with over 100 yards, the first time the Steelers running back did that since Willie Parker. What was working for you then when you were kind of finding your groove?
Honestly, just running plays that I'm comfortable with, and just having the feel, just knowing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, you obviously we talked about how great you were at Georgia Tech. You're somebody who made your mark down there in Atlanta. Did you feel like, the system you ran, which is primarily a wishbone system, what did you feel like that transition was like for you, going to more of a pro-style offense with an I formation type deal? How was that transition for you?
It was easy for me. People just thought that, just because I ran the offense in college. My first year we ran a pro-style offense. Mm-hmm. And then in high school I ran a spread offense. I had a shotgun. So some of the plays are pretty much similar, just the words were different. So it wasn't like I never did it before. And I think that's what people thought was worried about. But I don't know if they did their homework good enough. But, it all worked out for me. And, it was an uphill battle from a standpoint of me trying to prove to people. But I knew what I could do.
JD, I'm curious now. You mentioned you're coaching the youth. Helping with the running backs and the offense. What kind of offense are you guys running down there? Is it more similar to what you had at GT, or is it more similar to pro style, spread offense? Tell me about it.
No, I'm definitely not doing GT. If I had my choice, I wish it was a good offense for me, but it didn't help me get to where I want. Lucky enough, I was good enough, and God gave me some gifts, and I was able to showcase my athletic ability, so that helped me get to the NFL. But, from a standpoint of getting kids acclimated to a college system and things like that, I'm running a college system at our school now.
Really cool stuff, and certainly a great endeavor from you. Jonathan, you were on and off the team a little bit in 2013. Ultimately, that was your last year with the Steelers. I think you well know the story by now. Some of the writers, pitched the narrative that you struggled with your weight a little bit. Was there a sour taste in your mouth when you left the Steelers? And what story do you want the people to know out there?
I don't know. I think it was more so that was a business standpoint. I was supposed to make like a few $1 million that year, and I don't know about the weight thing. I had 1 year where I was overweight. That's because I came back from a broken foot. And I couldn't really do too much. I was in the best shape of my life that year. I weighed like 220 something. So I don't think it was really the way. It was just more so business. And they cut me and brought me back the following week. So
right.
It wasn't like, they didn't want me. So.
Yeah, no question. I just want to give you a chance to clear that up a little bit, because I think some people would misremember that based on the narrative that was written. Listen, man, obviously there's a big game this weekend people in the Steel City are curious about. It's not just the Steelers-Bengals, but it's Georgia Tech Pitt as well. You're probably going to have your eyes on that one, right? You're going to be watching this weekend?
I might go to. It depends on
all right.
My son has a game, and my daughter has a cheerleading. She's cheerleading her game, too. So we got to figure out what time everybody's doing it, and then all the family might go up there and watch it.
That would be really cool, man. And I'm sure when you go into a game like that at Georgia Tech, you're embraced, like a hero there walking into that stadium. Do you ever get kind of, does that get old to you?
I mean, I've never been a guy who, cares about getting attention or not. I mean, if you recognize me, that's cool. And, I'm a very approachable guy, but if you don't, I mean, it doesn't really bother me that you don't. I mean,
For sure.
I'm very laid back. So, but it's cool to, get love from the fans and just to be around, running into former teammates and things like that. That's what it's mainly about, just seeing family. That's my second home other than my parents' home and obviously my home now. But, it's just great to be back and let the kids see, certain memorabilia, seeing posters of this and award trophies of things that I did, and meeting some of my old teammates, and they get to see the celebrity life too. Because sometimes at first they didn't really understand it, but now they think they're cool because and they get a lot of attention too.
Yep, I'm sure that they are certainly embracing it, no question about it. I got to get you out of here on this note. Obviously, I'm sure you're still a fan of the NFL, and the Steelers are, as I mentioned, the talk of the town a little bit right now. Have you been watching the games, and kind of what are you, if you were to rate yourself as a Steelers fan on a scale of 1 to 10, do you still follow Pittsburgh football?
I still follow, some of the guys I still talk to, like Pouncey.
Yeah.
And, that's Pouncey's like the only guy in my class that's still there. So, draft class. So, I talked to them, talked to Coach Tomlin here and there. The defense is back to how it was when I first got there. They got 2 pass rushers. They got 2 monsters in the middle, Cam, and it's to it, and it's good Steelers football.
Yeah, no question about it. We had Weslye Saunders on this same podcast that we're releasing, JD, and we asked him if he had any dirt on you. He kept it. He said he has nothing on you. So I want to give you the chance in return. Weslye Saunders, anything you want to spill the beans on? Any stories?
No story. I mean, he was just funny. He was just a funny guy.
Sure.
In the locker room, he joked a lot of jokes, and so he was just funny cat in the locker room.
Good to hear. We love hearing the stories. Hey, listen, dude, we know you're a busy guy down there. Best of luck with everything, raising that family and coaching football, and still trying to find ways to tune into Georgia Tech and Steeler football as well. I think the Yinzers will be happy to hear from you, man, and happy to hear that you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Go Steelers.
All right, JD. Thanks, man. Later.
All right, man.
Want to, of course, thank both of our guests, Jonathan Dwyer and a little earlier Weslye Saunders, for coming on with us on the podcast and, having some not-so-easy conversations. It's always difficult to talk about your transgressions a little bit, but we're certainly a country of second chances, and, it's important to hear the story, I think, from the horse's mouth sometimes, and you just heard that from Dwyer and Saunders, 2 good guys. I want to remind you that coming up, and it's going to be this week, we have an awesome action-packed, star-filled podcast for you guys. We have 2-time Super Bowl champion Brian McFadden breaking down Steelers-Bengals. He's going to tell you his favorite in the AFC right now as we currently sit about midway through the season. He's also going to tell you a little bit about Mike Tomlin and playing under him, Ben Roethlisberger, and his love for Joe Burrow, the quarterback that the Steelers will face this Sunday. I'll give you a little teaser here. Bryant was asked if he could pick one quarterback out of these 5 young stars and have him for the next 10 years, who would he take? And the 5 young stars were Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. He took Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. That's the guy the Steelers are going to face on Sunday. So I let him explain and elaborate about a guy who the Steelers are going to be certainly seeing plenty of over the next decade. So look forward to that. As always, for my friend JY, I am Mike. I want to remind you guys out there to stay crazy and support your veterans today, whether it's on social media, outside, giving a head nod, wherever it may be. Once again, we want to implore you to do that. We are quite thankful for our freedom and having the ability to live and lead a free life as an American is at the forefront of my mind today and should be of yours. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on social media once more. Twitter, @Yinzer Crazy Show. Instagram, Yinzer_crazy. And, of course, our Facebook groups. Just type in Yinzer Crazy Show, and you join the thousands of crazies just like us. All right, one more time. You guys stay crazy. We'll do the same. Peace.